Hey everyone, it's Lulasai. I am here with a review for Pitch Black. This is a 2000 movie directed by, I'm sorry if I get his last name wrong, David Toy. Um, and this is the first movie we're reviewing on this channel that did come out the year I was born. So now my age has been revealed. No, actually, I think I said it already in the first video. But yeah, this movie came out when I was born, or the year I was born, and this is a rare case of me feeling like mixed about something, but like leaning heavily towards the positive side of the scale. Because most of the time when I say I'm mixed about something, it's usually not a good thing, right? But this is a really good movie that just has some elements in it that are kind of questionable, but it's still very unique. And well, I mean, it's unique if you pretend Tatooine doesn't exist. And then if you pretend Tatooine and Star Wars doesn't exist, then it's very unique and one of my favorite sci-fi horrors to go back to. So the plot is that we are, in the far future, and we're following this spacecraft that's in deep space that is traveling towards some colony, and the passengers are in cryosleep because it's such a long journey, and they're all there for various reasons. I mean, I think there's initially around like 40 passengers, but only around 10, maybe a little bit more end up surviving. So yeah, it's not really worth going through all the reasons why they're traveling to the human colony. It's not really the point of the movie, right? But I could if I wanted to, but nah, I think we could skip that. So the important part is that their ship crash lands on a nearby planet, which is very dangerous and has these creatures called bioraptors which inhabit it. The bioraptors have long wiped out every single other life form that was on the planet, and by the way, this is not information that's in the movie really, but I just happen to know it, so I'm telling you because I think it's interesting. It's not one of those cases where it's not like Donnie Darko where you have to know this information or else you won't be able to like the movie. I just happen to know a little bit more about it because I really like the movie. So this isn't really a problem, is what I'm saying. But just to fill you in a little bit more, so the bioraptors, they only emerge. So the planet has 3 suns, which is why I made that Tatooine joke earlier, because Tatooine has 2 suns. So this planet has 3 suns, and the bioraptors, they are, phobic of light. So they stay underground, and since they've wiped out all the food sources on the planet other than themselves, they are very cannibalistic towards themselves, and they only emerge once every 22 years. They're kind of like bears that go into hibernation for a very long time, and they only come out once every 22 years because that is when the other nearby planets and gas giants perfectly align in such a way that all 3 suns are being blocked at the same time, and then this solar eclipse happens for about 1 month. So yeah, that's some pretty interesting stuff. None of that's really in the movie, I just felt like telling it to you. But if you didn't have any of that knowledge, I mean, really, you don't need to know that stuff. They're just on a dangerous planet. There are some alien creatures that are hunting them, and really, that's all that matters, right? So, one of the most notable passenger on the convoy that they were on is, and one of the survivors, of course, is Riddick. So Riddick is a convicted murderer, and I would describe him as like a misanthrope, which is a pretty rare character trait. If you don't know what that word means, it means it's someone who detests humanity. So it's a human who detests humanity. Or I guess it doesn't have to be human. I'm sure Thanos might, or maybe not Thanos. Thanos might not be a misanthrope, but my point is that you don't see misanthropic characters very often. So Riddick, he is special. He was not born special, really, but he was made special because during his time in prison, he had a surgery done on his eyes that allowed him to see in the dark. So, of course, he ends up, at first, the rest of the survivors are, very afraid of him and, want to keep him separated from the group and chained up, or binded up. But eventually, they need him because of his ability and his general, I mean, even if he couldn't see in the dark, he's just a very strong ally to have in this situation anyways. So, yeah, he is basically their best chance of survival, purely based on the fact of his eyes and his lack of fear. But with the downside that he is very selfish and doesn't particularly care for people. So, that's the basic gist of it. Our characters are trying to escape off the planet, but they were unlucky enough to hit that 22-year threshold, so all the creatures are out hunting them. Alright, so let's start with the positives, because I actually do have a lot of negatives, and it's almost like I have so many negatives that it might make you question my rating a little bit, but I really like the movie. Okay, I want to stress that point. I really like the movie. I think it's very unique, it's very distinct, very memorable, and there's tons of aspects to like about it. So, positives, the visual style. So a lot of this is double-sided stuff. Like for every time I say something good, there might be a bad that accompanies it, and this is the first example of that. So this movie has a very distinct visual style. What I like about that, specifically the good stuff about that, is that there is no other movie that looks like this, and the solar eclipse scenes in particular are really cool. Like the way the colored flares look against the darkness, and all the creatures are just like on the edge of the light line and just slowly inching their way, and observing our characters looking for their moments to strike. It's a very thrilling survival movie. Watching movies about humans fighting for survival is inherently always entertaining, but it's even more so here because of the cool sci-fi elements, like the unique weapons they use, and just weird quirky stuff like his eyes. There's just a lot of like details here that you wouldn't normally expect that makes the world, and I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I'm particularly super invested in the Riddick universe, but I can appreciate how much effort and detail was put into kind of establishing that in the first place. Just the name of, planets and ships and stuff like that. Like it's a lot, it could have been bigger scope. I'm glad it wasn't, because I don't want to watch this for Dune. I don't want this to be like Dune or Star Wars. I want this to be what it is, which is a survival horror film, and it's perfect. It's done, well, it's not perfect, but it's done really well. I really like there's some characters I really like. So I really like Riddick, and I really like, simply because he's really cool and Vin Diesel portrays him very well. I like Jack, who has an interesting plot twist later on that, again, I mean, it's so funny to think about all of the circumstances of this movie. We'll talk about that more later, but that plot twist is almost kind of like adding icing on the cake of the ridiculous things that are happening, but it's still an interesting twist. Well, maybe interesting is the wrong word, but you get what I'm saying. It is unexpected and does serve the story technically. And but Jack is just kind of, even before the kind of peculiar plot twist, he is just a, he's one of the more admirable characters, simply because he's like kind of, he's mimicking, what's the word? He's like the adoring fan from Morrowind, basically, towards Riddick, which is just fun, or funny. So I also like Imam, I think that's how you say his name, played by Keith David. It's kind of sad watching him, but that's kind of why he's interesting to watch, because it's just so sad and depressing, but in a kind of like, yep, that's life for you kind of way. But I just like him, and yeah, I don't mind watching him. Keith David is in so many great things. The Thing, Coraline, it's crazy. We also have, yeah, and yeah, so those are the three characters I like, and the rest of them I'm not a huge fan of, but we'll talk about them more later. So yeah, we've basically covered everything. It's just that it's a very gritty movie that has a lot of unique things about it, because the three sons thing is a joke. It doesn't really matter that Tatooine has two sons. They're completely two different stories entirely. I didn't feel like this was copying A New Hope at all. So for me, this is so unique and distinct because of the way it looks. Sometimes for better or worse, the way it looks, as we'll talk about in a second here. There's a lot of profanity, and the death scenes are very brutal. So for me, it's just very entertaining, and it's something I can easily come back to and rewatch. I'm glad there isn't some huge sob story for Riddick or something. He is just simply a, selfish character who's trying to survive, and I'm glad the movie's not tiptoeing around that, or trying to water him down for us or something. Okay, so, negatives. Alright, so let's immediately go back to some of the positives that I gave it. So number one, the visuals, right? So I love the visuals that are, the flares in the dark, and basically all of the solar eclipse scenes are the good scenes. And then the daytime scenes are less good. They're okay, but they're less good. So The solar eclipse scenes make up about a half, maybe slightly less than half of the total runtime, and I have no problems with all the eclipse scenes basically. The sunlight scenes, however, so the sunlight scenes, if you split them in half, half of the sunlight scenes look visually weird. I've never seen a movie look like this ever in the 1,000+ movies I've seen. There's no movie that looks like this. So this movie, if you've never seen it, there is 3 suns, and this also dictates the temperature of and the color of the screen that you're watching in real life. So sometimes the screen will be really red or orange, which is more normal looking, but then other times the blue sun will come up and the screen will look blue. So there's a very strong blue hue here. I have to admit, this blue thing has kind of grown on me over the years. I appreciate how distinct it is. I honestly kind of respect low-key how tacky, like unapologetically tacky it looks. Like, it's crazy. That's what kind of plays into that whole sci-fi uniqueness and the edge this movie has. Is no other movie would be dumb enough to make itself blue constantly, but this one does, and it's just one of the many memorable things about it. So I've kind of grown to appreciate the blue thing, but I think it's probably objectively not a great thing, or more accurately, depending on the individual, you may find yourself not liking the blue thing. It may hurt your eyes, it may look unnatural, whatever. So yes, the movie is a little too blue, is first negative. But really, that's not a huge negative for me personally. That's more like what I feel is probably an objective one. Yeah, because the first time I watched this movie, I was like, is my TV settings off or something? But no, I keep most things at default or enable to be better, so even with like really good TV settings, 4K, it is just blue. That is what this movie is sometimes. I'd say about 30% of the time I want to say the movie is blue. Maybe a little too blue. Next negative, so I've talked about the characters I like. So let's talk about the characters I don't like. So Fry. So I will say Riddick goes through a decent redemption arc that I did feel like was earned enough and did make sense. Fry, however, she is, if you don't know who she is, because the characters are not exactly super memorable, other than Riddick, but Fry is the woman who almost jettisoned all the passengers to reduce the weight of the craft when it was about to hit the planet for her own self-preservation. She goes through a redemption arc as well. It does not feel as earned. I don't hate that character. I don't necessarily blame her for wanting to survive and maximize. I'm not saying I would do that, but I get it at least, right? It's not like she's doing it for fun. She's doing it to try and increase her chances of survival, which is inherently understandable. So even though it's a bad thing, but yeah, so I don't hate her. She doesn't like irritate me, but I don't think her redemption was very earned. And yeah, so she's probably the least bad of all the bad characters, but the rest of them are bad. And the reason they're bad is because they're either just straight up monster fodder and or they are purposely made annoying or unlikable, which is one of my least favorite things in horror movies. In my opinion, you should almost never make characters that are going to die in a horror movie unlikable and or annoying, because, I mean, that's the same thing. I don't need to say and or, but the reason I don't think you should do this is because it's kind of like, you know, it's like softening the blow for the audience unnecessarily. When I'm watching a horror movie, I don't mind if someone gets ripped apart. I don't mind if the person that gets ripped apart is a good person. It makes no difference to me, right? So when they are purposely making these characters annoying so that the audience is less impacted or less offended when their inevitable demise comes, it just feels kind of annoying. Or not annoying, but like, what's the word? Like, it feels maybe a little bit manipulative, and in a way that they're trying to mitigate the damage that they're doing to the audience. I don't know how to say it, but I think you know what I'm saying. You don't need to make victim characters unlikable. It doesn't matter if they're unlikable or not, and if they are unlikable and they die, I don't care about them at all. I mean, I probably wouldn't have cared that much even if they were likable, but that's what makes the difference, a signature key mark of what makes a good horror film versus a great one. The great ones have those slightly more in-depth characters that you do feel something when they die. Like The Thing, for example. The Thing, not everyone is super fleshed out. We don't get some sob story for everyone, but they're understandable guys. They all have their own unique jobs, and I don't know, they're not actively irritating me every 2 seconds like some of these characters might be trying to. Or they're just straight up forgettable, some of these characters, because, I mean, I like Keith David in this film, but his character has 3 proteges that are basically have no lines. I don't even know if they speak English, actually, if I can't remember now, but like they are literally just like 3 fodder lamb to the slaughter. So that's a problem because, I mean, it's fine. Obviously, movies like this have lamb to the slaughter, but you're really going to throw in 3 characters that don't even speak, and their literal sole purpose in life is to be horribly ripped apart by these creatures. It's just, there's better ways to do it, in my opinion. More negatives. So we've talked about the blueness. We've talked about some of the weak secondary characters. We also have, I'm now kind of blanking. Oh yeah, so the circumstances of this movie are hilarious to think about. So once every 22 years, these hibernating, you know, they're not nocturnal, but they are like blind. They're basically like bats still. So these bat-like creatures that only emerge once every 22 years, don't ask me how they're surviving, hibernating for 22 years, because I think the lore of this is that they're literally like bears, where they don't eat for their time during hibernation, and then they just wake up super hungry and in a frenzy. Well, I don't know how they're able to do that. Maybe they occasionally wake up to cannibalize each other. I don't know, but yeah, it's pretty funny how this movie comes together. The fact that they were unlucky enough to crash land on this specific planet at this specific time, and then also that other character has their specific medical thing happen to them, Jack, that character. All of this at the same time to create the absolute perfect storm. It's something out of a Shakespeare play. It's really funny to think about, and you're really better off not thinking about it at all. So I'm going to give Pitch Black an 8 out of 10. It is gritty. It is very cool. I like some of the characters, and the characters I like a lot, particularly Riddick. I like that the movie, I mean, it is tiptoeing with the whole, you know, making the victim characters annoying and stupid and making poor choices thing, but other than that, the movie is not tiptoeing around at all. I mean, it's lots of profanity, some occasional left field things are said, and yeah, so it's just a movie that feels like it's of its time, but in the best way possible. Like, I don't think they would make a movie like this today, and it's a shame. I wish they would make stuff like this today. So I highly recommend Pitch Black. For all its flaws, I think it's just too cool not to watch. That's the best way to put it. The movie is simply too cool and too entertaining and too fun to watch that anything I could say negatively about it is inconsequential in the long run, in my opinion. So please watch Pitch Black if you have not, and you can stomach the pretty graphic kills at times. Although really, I mean, a lot of those kills do happen slightly off screen anyways, because our main character can see in the dark, so you're gonna watch his like owl vision when they happens a lot of the time. But yeah, highly recommend it. It's a very cool movie. Can't recommend it enough.